Guide for Chosen Ones, Mastering Reality Control. Written and published by Jan the Mentalist. Chapter 1. Understanding the Game of Life. Many perceive life as a battlefield, but it's more akin to a game, especially if you are spiritually awake. And like any game, success hinges on understanding its rules. The principle of you reap what you sow underscores this game. Put simply, whatever energy one puts out into the world, be it love, hate, criticism, or deceit, will come back to them. Our thoughts and actions shape our reality. Consider the cautionary tale of a man who fixated on a rare disease until it materialized within him, ultimately leading to his demise. This illustrates the power of our imagination and the importance of steering it towards positive outcomes. Before we dive into the audiobook, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my new YouTube channel. This channel is brand new, and I've decided to share my entire book collection as audiobooks for free. If you're interested in listening to more audiobooks like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and like the video. Now let's get started with the book. To excel in the game of life as a chosen one, we must hone our ability to visualize the good. By cultivating a mindset focused on positivity, we invite health, wealth, love, friendship, and the realization of our loftiest aspirations into our lives. Imagination is often likened to the scissors of the mind, ceaselessly cutting, day by day, the images that occupy our thoughts. Eventually, these mental creations manifest in our external reality. To harness the power of imagination effectively, one must comprehend the inner workings of the mind, a notion echoed in the ancient Greek aphorism, "Know thyself." The mind comprises three distinct domains: the subconscious, conscious, and superconscious. The subconscious is akin to raw power, devoid of direction. It operates like steam or electricity, obedient to the commands it receives. Whatsoever deeply affects us or is vividly imagined is imprinted upon the subconscious and executed with meticulous precision. The conscious mind, often referred to as the mortal or carnal mind, is grounded in human perception. It observes life as it appears, recognizing death, suffering, illness, poverty, and various limitations, all of which leave their mark on the subconscious. In contrast, the superconscious mind represents the divine aspect within each individual, the God mind. It holds the blueprint of perfect ideas, the divine design, as Plato termed it, tailored to each person. Within this realm lies the perfect vision of one's purpose, often glimpsed by the conscious mind as an unattainable ideal, something seemingly too good to be true. Yet, in reality, it is a revelation of one's true destiny, a message from the infinite intelligence dwelling within. Sadly, many remain unaware of their true destinies, chasing after goals and situations that aren't aligned with their inherent purpose. Pursuing these misaligned paths only leads to disappointment and failure, as they stray further from the fulfillment intended for them. Countless individuals have invited disaster into their lives through careless words. Take, for instance, a woman who questioned why her life had become one of poverty and restriction. In the past, she lived in a comfortable home surrounded by beauty, yet she frequently expressed her weariness with managing it, saying, "I'm sick and tired of things. I wish I lived in a trunk." Little did she realize that her words were shaping her reality. Eventually, she found herself living in that very trunk she had spoken of. It's a stark reminder that the subconscious mind lacks a sense of humor. Often, people inadvertently speak themselves into unfortunate circumstances through casual remarks and jokes. The only barriers standing between man and his loftiest aspirations, between him and every longing of his heart, are doubt and fear. When one can wish without the burden of worry, every desire will swiftly come to fruition. The essence of the game of life lies in discerning one's blessings with clarity and obliterating all mental images of adversity. This can be achieved by imprinting the subconscious mind with a profound awareness of goodness. Every thought, every word uttered is etched into it with meticulous precision, much like a singer recording a song. Every inflection, every pause, even every cough or hesitation is captured. We possess the power to overwrite the old, undesirable records stored in our subconscious, the ones we no longer wish to retain, and replace them with new, uplifting ones. With conviction, speak aloud. I now obliterate every false record in my subconscious mind with my spoken word. These records shall return to the oblivion from which they came, for they are merely products of my unfounded imaginations. Through the divine essence within me, I now create new records of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. This marks the completion of the game of life, the square of existence. Chapter 2. How to design your life as a chosen one. Life is brimming with beginnings, offered to every person each day, each hour. Though many beginnings seem small and inconsequential, they hold immense significance. Observe how in the material realm grand developments stem from humble origins. The mightiest river starts as a mere trickle, the vast flood begins with a few raindrops, and the sturdy oak begins as a tiny acorn. Similarly, a small, neglected match can spark a devastating inferno. Likewise, in the spiritual realm, monumental achievements often emerge from modest beginnings. A fleeting idea may birth an extraordinary invention or masterpiece. A simple utterance can alter the course of history, and a pure thought may unleash transformative power. Conversely, a fleeting impulse can lead to heinous deeds. Have you grasped the profound importance of beginnings? Do you comprehend the implications of a new start? Are you aware of the multitude of beginnings you constantly encounter and their profound impact? If not, join me for a brief exploration of this overlooked pathway to happiness, for it holds much wisdom and solace for the discerning mind. A beginning sets in motion a series of effects, always aligned with its nature. Furthermore, a beginning implies an end, a culmination, achievement, or goal. Just as a gate leads to a path and ultimately to a destination, a beginning leads to outcomes which in turn lead to a conclusion. There are both right and wrong beginnings, each yielding corresponding outcomes. With careful consideration, you can avoid detrimental starts and instead initiate beneficial ones, thus avoiding harm and embracing good. While there are beginnings beyond your control, external factors in the universe, nature, and the actions of others, focus your attention on the beginnings within your realm of authority, your thoughts, actions, and attitudes. Your life is composed of the intricate web of results stemming from these beginnings, shaping your world of either joy or sorrow. In pursuit of a blessed life, one of the simplest yet most impactful beginnings to consider is the start of each day. How you begin each day sets the tone for the hours ahead. What time do you rise? How do you approach your tasks? What mindset do you bring to the start of a new day? These are crucial questions worth pondering. You'll discover that much happiness or unhappiness hinges on whether you begin the day right or wrong. When each day is wisely initiated, a harmonious and joyful journey typically unfolds, bringing life closer to the ideal state of blessedness. A strong and proper beginning to the day involves rising early, even if your obligations don't demand it. It's wise to consider it a duty and a chance to shake off any traces of laziness. How can you cultivate strength of will, mind, and body if you start each day by succumbing to weakness? Indulging in self-comfort leads to unhappiness. Those who linger in bed until late hours seldom greet the day with brightness and energy. Instead, they become susceptible to irritability, depression, fatigue, nervous disorders, and other negative states. This is the toll they pay for their daily indulgence. Yet, the allure of self-gratification is so strong that, like a drunkard who believes his daily drink strengthens his nerves while it actually weakens them, those who oversleep convince themselves that prolonged rest is necessary to alleviate the very issues caused by their indulgence. People often underestimate the significant losses incurred by this common habit. Diminished mental and physical vigor, decreased prosperity, reduced knowledge, and a diminished sense of happiness. Begin your day by rising early, even if you have no specific reason to do so. Take a gentle walk amidst nature's beauty, and you'll experience a sense of buoyancy, freshness, and delight, not to mention a peace of mind that rewards your effort. One positive action leads to another. Starting the day early, even without a specific purpose, fosters clarity of mind and tranquility of thought. The early morning stroll aids in becoming a more coherent thinker, providing a clearer perspective on life, its challenges, and one's own affairs. Over time, rising early with the intention of preparing the mind for wisdom and inner strength becomes a deliberate habit. Indeed, there's a spiritual essence in the early hours, a divine silence and an ineffable calmness. By purposefully shedding the comfort of sleep and ascending the hills to greet the morning sun, one ascends towards greater blessedness and truth. A proper beginning to the day brings cheerfulness to the morning meal, spreading a sunny influence throughout the household. Tasks and duties are approached with confidence and vigor, leading to a fulfilling and well-lived day. Each day can be seen as the commencement of a new life, a fresh opportunity to think, act, and exist with renewed wisdom and virtue. However, it's crucial not to dwell excessively on the sins and mistakes of yesterday, draining all energy and mental focus from living rightly today. Likewise, don't assume that past transgressions will inevitably taint your present purity. Start today on the right foot, drawing upon the lessons learned from past experiences to live better than before. But remember, you cannot possibly improve upon your life unless you start the day with the right mindset. The quality of the entire day hinges upon its beginning. Consider the inception of any significant and responsible endeavor, a pivotal moment that warrants great attention. How does one embark on the construction of a house? Initially, he obtains a detailed plan of the proposed structure, meticulously adhering to it from the foundation upwards. Neglecting this crucial starting point, obtaining a precise blueprint would render his efforts futile. Even if the construction miraculously reaches completion without collapsing, it would lack security and value. This principle applies universally to any substantial undertaking. A clear and well-defined mental blueprint is the cornerstone upon which to build. Nature abhors careless workmanship and disorder, favoring instead order, precision, and purpose. Ignoring these fundamental principles in one's endeavors deprives them of substance, completeness, and ultimately, success. Successful, influential, and virtuous individuals are distinguished by their ability to recognize and harness the value and power inherent in seemingly insignificant beginnings, opportunities that the foolish overlook. The most crucial beginning of all, upon which affliction or blessedness invariably hinges, yet often goes unnoticed and least comprehended, is the inception of thought in the hidden, yet causative realm of the mind. Your entire life unfolds as a sequence of effects stemming from the causes embedded in your thoughts, your own thoughts. Every action is shaped and molded by thought. All deeds, whether good or bad, are the visible manifestations of thoughts. Just as a seed planted in the soil marks the beginning of a plant or tree, thoughts planted in the mind initiate a course of action. These thoughts first take root in the mind, then manifest in actions or behavior, which in turn evolve into character and destiny. Hateful, angry, envious, covetous, and impure thoughts constitute wrong beginnings, leading to painful outcomes. Conversely, loving, gentle, kind, unselfish, and pure thoughts represent right beginnings, leading to blissful outcomes. It's a simple, undeniable truth, yet often overlooked, evaded, and poorly understood. Just as a diligent gardener carefully considers how, when, and where to sow his seeds for optimal results and greater horticultural knowledge, so too does the man who patiently studies how to plant seeds of strong, wholesome, and charitable thoughts in his mind. He reaps the best outcomes in life and gains deeper insights into truth. The highest blessedness is attained by infusing the mind with the purest and noblest thoughts. Only right actions can stem from right thoughts. Only a righteous life can follow right actions, and by living such a life, all blessedness is attained. As one contemplates the nature and significance of their thoughts, striving daily to replace negative thoughts with positive ones, they come to realize that thoughts serve as the seeds of outcomes that permeate every aspect of their existence. These thoughts profoundly influence every event and circumstance of life. Thus, one who comprehends this truth consciously cultivates right thoughts, initiating mental processes that lead to peace and blessedness. Wrong thoughts are painful from their inception, through their growth and in their outcomes. In contrast, right thoughts bring joy from their inception, through their growth and in their outcomes. Among the various right beginnings a person must discern and embrace on the journey to wisdom, there is one that stands as the foremost and paramount, the right commencement of mental operations. This entails the steady cultivation of self-control, willpower, steadfastness, strength, purity, gentleness, insight, and understanding. It paves the path to the perfection of life, for one who thinks perfectly has eradicated all unhappiness. Every moment is peaceful, and years are adorned with bliss. Such a person has achieved complete personal mastery. Self-centered individuals aspire to greatness, fixating on grand achievements while disregarding and belittling the small tasks that demand immediate attention. They view these trivialities as beneath the notice of great men. Meanwhile, the fool's lack of knowledge stems from a lack of humility, leading them to aim for impossible feats fueled by inflated self-importance. In contrast, a truly great individual attains greatness through meticulous and selfless attention to small duties. They become wise and powerful by sacrificing ambition and pride in performing necessary tasks that receive no applause or reward. They never pursued greatness itself. Instead, they sought faithfulness, unselfishness, integrity, and truth. Through these values found in the ordinary routine of small tasks, they unconsciously ascended to greatness. The great man recognizes the immense value inherent in everyday moments: words, greetings, meals, attire, correspondence, rest, work, and countless other small details of life. They perceive everything as divinely ordained, requiring only their dispassionate thought and action to make life blessed and perfect. They neglect nothing, avoid rushing, and seek to evade only error and folly. By dedicating themselves wholeheartedly to their immediate duties, disregarding both pleasure and pain, they embody a blend of childlike simplicity and unconscious power characteristic of greatness. Confucius advised his disciples to eat at your own table as you would at the table of a king, highlighting the immense significance of small actions. Similarly, another great teacher, Buddha, emphasized the importance of taking vigorous action when necessary. Neglecting small tasks or performing them perfunctorily or sloppily reflects weakness and folly. Devoting oneself entirely and selflessly to every duty in its proper place leads, through natural progression, to the emergence of higher combinations of duties. This evolution fosters power and cultivates talent, genius, goodness, and character. Just as a plant naturally produces a flower, a person ascends into greatness by diligently placing every effort and detail in its rightful place, harmonizing life and character without friction or wasted energy. Despite the abundance of advice on developing willpower and concentration, much of it seems disconnected from real-life experience. The true path to developing willpower and concentration lies in earnestly and wholeheartedly engaging in one's daily tasks, a path that remains unexplored by many. Forcing and straining to gain power should be abandoned, as growth is the only way from childhood to adulthood, from folly to wisdom, from ignorance to knowledge, and from weakness to strength. True willpower involves overcoming irritabilities, follies, rash impulses, and moral lapses, while fostering calmness, self-possession, and dispassionate action in the midst of worldly duties and passionate circumstances. Anything less than this is not genuine power and can only be developed through steady growth in executing daily tasks and obligations with increasing mastery, selflessness, and perfection. The mark of a true, chosen one is not found in mysterious and wondrous psychological feats that crumble in moments of vulnerability, leaving one susceptible to irritability, regret, or other petty follies. Instead, mastery is demonstrated through fortitude, non-resentment, steadfastness, calmness, and infinite patience. A true chosen one is who has mastered themselves. Anything less than this is mere delusion. By fully immersing oneself in each task, pouring energy and intelligence into it, while shutting out distractions and focusing on completion, one gains greater control over the mind. Through consistent dedication to this practice, one gradually ascends to become a person of power, a true master, a chosen one. Wholeheartedly invest yourself in your current task, striving to leave each endeavor as a finished piece of work. This is the path to acquiring willpower, concentration, and energy conservation. There's no need to seek out magical formulas or resort to strained and artificial methods. Every resource lies within you. You simply need to learn how to wisely apply yourself to your current circumstances. Only then can you progress to higher levels of responsibility and achievement. Strength and wisdom are cultivated by acting decisively and wisely in the present moment, without overlooking even the smallest tasks deemed necessary. The great and wise person respects the significance of small tasks, while the weak and foolish one handles them carelessly, always yearning for grander endeavors they are ill-prepared for. Self-governance is the foundation for assuming greater responsibilities and leadership roles. Neglecting seemingly trivial tasks deceives oneself. It's not that these tasks are too small, but rather too great for one who neglects them. Just as the faithful execution of small tasks leads to greater strength, negligence in these tasks leads to greater weakness. A person's character is revealed not in grand gestures, but in the manner they handle everyday duties. Weakness is as detrimental as sin, and true blessedness can only be attained through the evolution of character strength. The weak grow strong by valuing and executing small tasks diligently, while the strong risk weakening themselves by neglecting these details and squandering their energy. Every thought, word, and action contributes to the gradual shaping of character, adding or subtracting from its essence with each passing moment. Some people mistakenly believe that small faults or indulgences don't really matter, as long as they avoid major wrongdoings. They may even consider themselves virtuous or holy because of this. However, this mindset actually deprives them of true virtue and respect from others. Their lack of seriousness towards their own flaws reflects poorly on their character, leading others to view them as unimportant. Despite their attempts to preach about virtue and discourage major vices, their words carry little weight and fail to make an impact. Their nonchalant attitude towards their own mistakes ultimately leads to them being disregarded and losing influence and respect. People don't seek their guidance, as who would want advice from someone who doesn't take things seriously? Their efforts don't succeed because others don't trust them. Their words are ignored because they lack depth and credibility. The wise person, or someone on the path to wisdom, recognizes the danger in common personal faults that people often overlook or dismiss. They also understand the potential for salvation in giving up those faults and embracing virtuous thoughts and actions that many consider insignificant. They understand the profound impact, whether positive or negative, that every thought and action can have, and how these details shape their character and life. By recognizing the importance of each thought and action, they strive to improve themselves gradually, step by step. They understand that just as the ocean is made up of countless drops and the earth of grains of sand, life is composed of individual thoughts and deeds. Without these, life wouldn't exist. Therefore, every person's life reflects the sum total of their thoughts and actions, with each moment contributing to the overall character and trajectory of their life. Small acts of kindness, generosity, and sacrifice contribute to a kind and generous character, while minor acts of self-denial, endurance, and triumph over one's weaknesses build strength and nobility. A truly honest person maintains honesty in every aspect of their life, while a noble individual exemplifies nobility in all their words and actions. Many people mistakenly believe that life is separate from momentary thoughts and actions, failing to grasp that these fleeting moments form the foundation and substance of life itself. When this truth is fully understood, Everything is perceived as sacred, and every action takes on a spiritual significance. Truth resides in the smallest details, and thoroughness is akin to genius. Your life is not lived in its entirety all at once. It unfolds through the individual moments or fragments that compose it. You have the power to infuse nobility into each of these fragments, and when you do so, the entirety of your life will be free from any trace of baseness. The familiar saying, "Take care of the pence and the pounds will take care of themselves," holds profound spiritual wisdom. By attending to each passing moment with care and nobility, you ensure the integrity and quality of your overall life and character. Instead of yearning to accomplish grand and admirable feats, focus on performing your current tasks with nobility and excellence. Rather than resenting the constraints and limitations of your present responsibilities, approach them with selfless dedication, setting aside discontentment and the desire for grand achievements beyond your reach. By doing so, you will find that the greatness you longed for begins to manifest itself. Peevishness is a sign of weakness. Aspire instead to cultivate inner nobility rather than seeking external glory, and begin this journey right where you are. The frustration and discomfort you experience in your tasks exist only within your mind. By shifting your mindset towards them, you can transform the challenging path into a smooth one and turn unhappiness into joy. Ensure that each fleeting moment is imbued with strength, purity, and purpose. Infuse earnestness and selflessness into every task and duty, making each thought, word, and action genuine and noble. Through consistent practice and experience, you will come to appreciate the immense value of life's small things, gradually accumulating abundant and lasting happiness. Chapter 3. Why transcending difficulties is important. It might sound strange to say that problems and puzzles can actually bring good things, but sometimes truth can be a bit paradoxical. What seems like a big problem to someone who doesn't know much might not be a problem at all for someone who's learned a lot. Think about how a simple task can seem really hard to a kid. They might spend hours or even days struggling with it, feeling frustrated and confused. But as they keep working at it, they learn and grow, and eventually they figure it out. It's the same with grown-ups and the challenges they face. Each problem they solve teaches them something new and helps them become wiser and stronger. What's really behind a difficult situation? Isn't it just something we don't fully understand yet? When we face difficulty, it's like a call to dig deeper, to think harder, and to use abilities we might not have realized we had. So, in a way, difficulties can actually be helpful. They push us to tap into our hidden strengths and abilities, teaching us important lessons and leading us to greater wisdom and happiness. Imagine if life were always easy, with no challenges to overcome. We'd never grow, never learn, and never change. Everything would just stay the same, and we'd eventually get bored to death. So, when obstacles come our way, we should actually be glad. It means we've hit a point where we can't just coast along anymore. We're being challenged to step up, to use all our strength and smarts to find a way forward. It's a sign that there's more we can achieve, more we can become, if we're willing to push ourselves. Difficulties don't just pop up out of nowhere. They arise because there's something we don't understand or because we're not handling the situation wisely. But when we face and overcome these challenges, we gain so much. It's like leveling up in a video game. Each obstacle we conquer makes us stronger and wiser. And really, difficulties are just a natural part of life's journey, nudging us to grow and evolve. So, in a way, they're actually blessings in disguise. When life gets tangled up in complications and confusion, there's always a way out. No matter how stuck you feel, there's always a path back to clarity and simplicity. But you won't find it by giving in to despair or complaining. It takes alertness, clear thinking, and determined effort to unravel the mess. Worrying only makes things worse, magnifying the problem in your mind. Instead, take a step back and review how you got into this situation. Look for the wrong turns and mistakes you made along the way. Reflect on what you could have done differently with more thoughtfulness and wisdom. Once you understand where you went wrong, the problem won't seem so insurmountable. You can dissect it, understand its details, and see how it connects to your own actions and choices. By doing this, you'll find your way out and gain valuable wisdom in the process. You'll learn from your mistakes and become better equipped to handle similar challenges in the future. Just as certain attitudes like ignorance, selfishness, and folly lead to confusion and chaos, there are also paths of knowledge, selflessness, and wisdom that lead to peace and fulfillment. Recognizing this, a person can face difficulties with courage, knowing that overcoming them will bring truth out of error, happiness out of pain, and peace out of turmoil. Every challenge a person faces is within their capacity to overcome. Worrying not only serves no purpose, but it also undermines the power and intelligence that could otherwise tackle the task. With the right approach, every difficulty can be managed, rendering anxiety unnecessary. If a task cannot be overcome, it ceases to be a difficulty and becomes an impossibility. In such cases, the only option is acceptance, as the inevitable is ultimately the best course of action. Similar to how challenges in daily life arise from ignorance but lead to greater understanding, every religious doubt, mental perplexity, and emotional shadow foreshadow a deeper spiritual understanding and a brighter future for those who experience them. When a person is faced with perplexing questions about the meaning of life, it marks a significant turning point, even if they don't realize it at the time. It signals the end of a period of apathy and contentment with mere existence, and the beginning of a journey towards self-discovery and growth. No longer satisfied with simply living, they start to grapple with life's deeper mysteries, striving to unravel the enigmas that guard the entrance to the temple of wisdom. Once the divine spark within a person has been ignited, there's no going back to a life of selfish indulgence and ignorance. They can no longer find satisfaction in fleeting pleasures or ignore the probing questions that arise in their heart. Like a god awakening from a deep slumber, they are compelled to seek truth and purpose relentlessly. The inner faculties that have been stirred will drive them ceaselessly toward unraveling life's mysteries. There's no peace in wrongdoing or comfort in ignorance for such a soul. Their only refuge lies in embracing wisdom and enlightenment. The man who faces his doubts and perplexities head-on, acknowledging the ignorance from which they arise, will find great joy and fulfillment in the pursuit of understanding. Just as a child rejoices upon finally mastering a difficult lesson, so too does a person's heart become light and free when they successfully overcome worldly challenges. But the joy experienced when unraveling profound and eternal questions is far greater. When a person finally finds the answers they've been seeking and dispels the darkness of uncertainty, their heart is filled with immense peace and happiness. Instead of seeing your difficulties and perplexities as omens of misfortune, recognize them as signs of forthcoming good, which they truly are. Trying to avoid or escape them is futile because they will always be present wherever you go. Instead, face them with courage and composure. Approach them with dispassion and dignity, carefully examining their nature, understanding their intricacies, and assessing their strength. Then, take decisive action to overcome them. In doing so, you will cultivate strength and intelligence, and discover hidden pathways to happiness and fulfillment that are often overlooked. Chapter 4. You should drop your burdens. We often hear about the virtue of bearing burdens, but little is said about the wisdom of dropping them altogether. Why carry an oppressive weight in your heart when you could free yourself from it and move through life with a lighter spirit? Just as a person carries a load on their back only to transport something from one place to another, they don't saddle themselves with perpetual burden and consider themselves martyrs for it. Similarly, why impose a useless burden on your mind and then compound it with self-pity and sorrow? Why not abandon both the burden and the misery, thus adding to the joy of the world by first making yourself joyful? There's no justification for continuously carrying a heavy load. Just as a material load is taken up only as a necessary means of transfer and not a source of sorrow, a spiritual burden should only be shouldered if it serves a good and necessary purpose. Once that purpose is fulfilled, The burden should be set aside, and carrying it should be a cause for rejoicing, not grief. We often criticize religious ascetics who subject themselves to bodily mortifications, deeming them unnecessary and futile. But are the mental mortifications that many people inflict upon themselves any less unnecessary and futile? Where is the burden that should bring about unhappiness or sorrow? It doesn't actually exist. If something needs to be done, let's do it cheerfully, without internal groans and complaints. Embracing necessity as a friend and guide is the epitome of wisdom. Conversely, scowling upon necessity as an enemy and attempting to overcome or avoid it is sheer folly. We encounter our own necessities at every turn, and duties only become oppressive burdens when we refuse to acknowledge and accept them. Anyone who approaches necessary tasks with a begrudging and complaining attitude, while chasing after unnecessary pleasures, inflicts upon themselves the misery and disappointment of self-imposed hardship. They burden themselves with weariness and restlessness, constantly groaning under the weight of their own actions. You might feel that a certain duty, relationship, or social obligation is burdensome and oppressive, resigning yourself to endure it with the thought, "I've committed to this, and I'll see it through," but it's heavy and burdensome. But is the thing itself truly burdensome, or is it your own selfishness that's weighing you down? Let me tell you, that very thing you perceive as a suffocating restriction is actually the first step toward your liberation. The work you view as an ongoing curse holds within it the true blessings you seek, blessings you mistakenly believe lie elsewhere and are unattainable. Everything around you is like a mirror reflecting back your own state of mind, and the darkness you perceive in your work is merely a reflection of the negativity you bring to it. Change your mindset to one of righteousness and selflessness, and watch as your perspective transforms. Suddenly, that once burdensome task becomes a source of strength and joy, reflecting the positive energy you've infused into it. Imagine if you approached a mirror with a scowl on your face. Would you blame the mirror for reflecting back an unpleasant image? Or would you adjust your expression and see a more pleasing reflection in return? If something is right and necessary, then doing it is inherently good. It only feels burdensome when we resist doing it out of selfish desires, which warp our perception and make the task seem evil. Conversely, if something neither right nor necessary is pursued solely for pleasure, it's foolishness that will inevitably lead to burdensome consequences. The duties we avoid act as our guiding angels, gently nudging us toward what's right. Conversely, the pleasures we chase after serve as our deceitful foes, leading us astray. Oh, foolish human, when will you wake up and embrace wisdom? The universe operates with benevolence, constantly nudging all beings toward wisdom just as it requires order among its atoms. The suffering caused by folly and selfishness serves a purpose. It prevents us from falling into apathy and acts as a precursor to wisdom. What causes pain? Passion does. What brings grief? Folly does. What feels burdensome? Selfishness does. Burden dropping means letting go of inward selfishness and replacing it with pure love. Approach your tasks with love in your heart, and you'll tackle them with a light and cheerful spirit. The mind, often due to ignorance, creates its own burdens and imposes its own punishments. No one is fated to carry any particular burden, and sorrow isn't arbitrarily forced upon us. These things are self-inflicted. Reason should rightfully govern the mind, but when passion takes over, chaos reigns. Pursuing pleasure may lead to temporary satisfaction, but it's often followed by heaviness and anguish. Remember, you have the power to choose. Even if you feel bound by passion, you've bound yourself, and you're not truly helpless. Where you've tied yourself down, you can untie yourself. You've arrived at your current state gradually, and you can gradually reclaim control, reinstating reason and dethroning passion. It's wise to avoid evil before embracing pleasure, but once you've embraced it, you should let its consequences teach you. Similarly, it's best to make decisions before taking on responsibilities, but once you've committed, you should exclude selfish thoughts and complaints, embracing your responsibilities with love and wisdom. Every burden a person carries feels heavier because of selfish desires and weak thoughts. If your circumstances seem challenging, it's because you need them to grow stronger. These challenges persist because there's a weakness within you that needs to be addressed. Embrace these opportunities to become stronger and wiser. To wisdom, no circumstance is truly trying, and love never tires. Instead of dwelling on your own challenges, consider the lives of those around you. Consider a woman with a large family who manages her household on a tight budget. Despite her limited resources, she handles all her domestic chores, cares for sick neighbors, and avoids both debt and despair. Her cheerful demeanor stems from her selflessness. She finds joy in bringing happiness to others, instead of dwelling on what she lacks, the vacations, luxuries, and leisure time she can't afford. She focuses on the positive impact she can make. If she indulged in longing for what she doesn't have, she'd be miserable, and her work would feel burdensome. But by embracing a selfless attitude, she finds relief from any burdens and remains content. Cheerfulness and unselfishness go hand in hand, as love lightens the heaviest tasks. Consider another woman who has more than enough wealth and leisure, yet she feels constantly dissatisfied. Whether it's fulfilling an obligation she wishes to avoid or harboring unfulfilled desires, she complains of trying circumstances. Discontent and selfishness are constant companions. Self-centeredness breeds only unhappiness and prevents her from finding joy in her work. Consider the two contrasting scenarios described above. Which circumstances are truly trying? Isn't it accurate to say that neither of them are inherently difficult, but rather, they are either blessed or unblessed based on the presence of love or selfishness? The core of the issue lies in the mindset of the individual, not in the circumstances themselves. Only a true chosen one can accomplish significant deeds, and their greatness will shine through regardless of their circumstances. They will carry out their noble tasks wherever they are, thriving under any conditions once they have uncovered and embraced their purpose. If you're eager to contribute to the betterment of humanity, start by helping those closest to you. Yourself, your neighbor, your spouse, your child. Don't be deceived. Unless you faithfully attend to the smaller, more immediate responsibilities, you cannot aspire to undertake larger, more distant ones. If a man has indulged in a life of hedonism and selfish pursuits for many years, it's natural that the consequences of his actions will eventually catch up with him. These accumulated mistakes serve as a wake-up call, urging him to abandon his destructive ways and seek a better path. However, if he interprets these self-created burdens as divine tests, signs of virtue, or unjust impositions by fate or others, he only prolongs his folly and intensifies his suffering. It's only when he realizes that his burdens are the result of his own choices and actions that he can stop wallowing in self-pity and start shedding these burdens. He must understand that every thought and action contributes to the construction of his life, and only then can he gain the insight to recognize his own shortcomings, the courage to admit them, and the determination to rebuild his life in a more noble and enduring manner. Painful burdens serve a purpose, but only until we attain love and wisdom. The temple of blessedness awaits beyond the outer realms of suffering and humiliation, and to reach it, the pilgrim must traverse these outer realms. Initially, the pilgrim may linger in these outer realms, mistaking them for the inner sanctuary. As long as the pilgrim pities themselves and equates suffering with holiness, they will remain trapped in suffering. However, once they discard the self-indulgent notion of self-pity and realize that suffering is a transitional state rather than a permanent condition, they will undergo a transformation. With renewed understanding and clarity of mind, they will swiftly move through the outer realms and arrive at the inner sanctuary of peace. Suffering arises not from perfection but from imperfection, marking incompleteness rather than entirety. Therefore, it can be transcended. Its source, self-generated, can be identified, examined, understood, and ultimately eradicated. Indeed, we must traverse through agony to find rest, through loneliness to discover peace. However, the sufferer should remember that this is a journey, not a permanent dwelling. Agony serves as a gateway, loneliness as a pathway, leading eventually to painless and blissful repose. Burden accumulates gradually, almost imperceptibly. It starts with thoughtless actions, indulgences, yielding to blind passions repeatedly. With each repetition, the weight increases until it becomes oppressive. Initially, the burden may go unnoticed, but with time, its weight becomes palpable, burdening the heart with weariness. At this juncture, the sufferer must introspect, seeking the path of burden dropping. By reversing the behaviors that led to the accumulation of burdens, they will discover wisdom to live better, purity to savor life more deeply, and love to live more nobly. In this transformation, they will find light-heartedness, cheerful action, and unclouded joy. Chapter 5. Sympathizing others as a chosen one. To truly sympathize with others, we must first conquer our own inner struggles. It's impossible to genuinely think and feel for others while we're absorbed in self-pity or consumed by desires for personal gain or recognition. Sympathy is about being thoughtful towards others while forgetting ourselves. Understanding others requires setting aside our own biases and seeing them as they truly are. We need to connect with their inner experiences, viewing the world through their perspective. This isn't feasible when dealing with individuals wiser or more experienced than us, or when we see ourselves as superior. Egotism and sympathy cannot coexist. However, we can extend sympathy to those facing challenges we've overcome. While our sympathy may not match the greatness of those beyond our level, we can still position ourselves to receive their guidance and support, facilitating our own journey towards freedom from similar struggles. Prejudice and ill will prevent us from giving sympathy, while pride and vanity hinder us from receiving it. It's impossible to sympathize with someone we hate, just as we can't appreciate the sympathy of someone we envy. When we dislike someone or are driven by base affections, we fail to understand them. Instead, we see them through the distorted lens of our biased opinions. To truly see others as they are, we must set aside impulsive likes and dislikes, deep-seated prejudices, and egotistical considerations. We shouldn't resent their actions or condemn their beliefs. Instead, we must temporarily step into their shoes, viewing the world from their perspective. Only then can we truly connect with them, understand their life and experiences, and avoid unjust condemnation. Misjudgment and condemnation arise from a lack of understanding, which, in turn, stems from our failure to overcome and purify ourselves. Life is a journey of growth and development, a continuous process of evolution. In essence, there's no fundamental difference between a sinner and a saint. The disparity lies only in the extent of their progression. A saint was once a sinner, just as a sinner has the potential to become a saint. Viewing sinners as irredeemably wicked is akin to avoiding children because they lack wisdom and play with toys. All life is interconnected, albeit expressed in diverse forms. A blooming flower isn't separate from the tree. It's an extension of it, merely a different manifestation of a leaf. Similarly, steam isn't distinct from water. It's just another form of water. Likewise, good emerges from the transformation of evil. A saint is essentially a sinner who has evolved and undergone a profound change. The sinner is someone whose understanding is still immature, leading them to make unwise choices. On the other hand, the saint's understanding has matured, guiding them to make wise decisions. While the sinner tends to condemn others, which is itself a wrong action, the saint refrains from condemnation. Instead, they offer deep sympathy, seeing the sinner as akin to a younger sibling or friend. Sympathy, in this context, is regarded as a correct and enlightened response. A saint who extends sympathy to all doesn't need it themselves, as they've transcended sin and suffering, dwelling in enduring bliss. However, those who suffer require sympathy, and those who sin inevitably experience suffering. Understanding dawns upon a person when they realize that every sin, whether in thought or deed, naturally brings about its own measure of suffering. This realization shifts their perspective from condemnation to sympathy, as they recognize the inherent suffering that accompanies sin. And this understanding is attained through the process of self-purification. A person's capacity for sympathy grows alongside their wisdom, and this wisdom expands as they become more tender-hearted and compassionate. When someone restricts their sympathy, they also narrow their heart, leading to a darker and more embittered life. Conversely, widening and deepening one's sympathy brings illumination and joy, making the path to light and happiness clearer for both oneself and others. Sympathy involves embracing another person's essence as our own, forging a unity between them and us, because selfless love binds us inseparably. When a person's sympathy extends to encompass all humanity and living beings, they recognize their unity and interconnectedness with everything. They grasp the universal love, law, and wisdom. Exclusion from heaven, peace, and truth occurs only when someone shuts others out from their sympathy. Where sympathy ends, darkness, turmoil, and torment begin. Closing ourselves off from expressing love to others imprisons us within the confines of self, denying us the blessings of love. Sympathy indeed brings about the highest and purest form of happiness. It's divine because, in its mutual exchange, all self-centeredness fades away, leaving only the profound joy of unity with others, the indescribable connection of spiritual oneness. When a person stops sympathizing, they stop truly living, seeing, understanding, and experiencing life to its fullest. The truly good and wise person doesn't condemn anyone. Having overcome selfishness and passion, they reside in a serene state of love and peace, understanding all forms of wrongdoing and the suffering they bring. Enlightened and free from selfish influences, they sympathize with everyone, even those who condemn, abuse, or slander them. Instead of retaliating, they offer understanding, seeing the ignorance behind such actions and knowing that the perpetrators will suffer the consequences of their deeds. Through self-mastery and wisdom, learn to love those you currently condemn and to sympathize with those who criticize you. Instead of focusing on their condemnation, examine your own heart for any unkind or unjust thoughts you may harbor. True sympathy goes beyond personal affection. It extends even to those who don't reciprocate our love, reflecting a divine quality of compassion. Another aspect of sympathy is rejoicing in the success of others as if it were our own. Truly blessed is the person who feels genuine joy when hearing about the good fortune of even those who may consider them as adversaries. Furthermore, demonstrating sympathy by protecting creatures weaker and more vulnerable than oneself is another divine expression of compassion. The helpless innocence of animals calls for profound empathy. True strength lies not in domination but in using power to shield and protect, not to harm or destroy. By extending sympathy to others, we enrich our own lives. Sympathy given is always meaningful and never wasted. It transcends barriers of language and species, touching even the humblest creatures. Consider a true story of a Dartmoor convict whose time behind bars spanned over 40 years. He was known as hardened and incorrigible, defying the efforts of the prison wardens to reach him. However, one day, he captured a mouse, a small, frightened creature much like himself in its vulnerability. The convict's heart, hardened by a life of crime, was stirred by the mouse's plight, recognizing a reflection of his own struggles. This simple act ignited a dormant spark of compassion within him, a spark that no human interaction had ever managed to kindle. Giving sympathy enriches our own lives. It's like planting seeds of blessings in our hearts that grow and flourish. When we share sympathy, we receive blessings in return. But when we hold back sympathy, we miss out on those blessings. The more we expand our capacity for sympathy, the closer we get to living an ideal life, a life of perfect joy. And when our hearts are so full of compassion that there's no room for bitterness or cruelty, that's when we truly experience divine blessings in abundance. Chapter 6. Why forgiveness is important for chosen ones. Holding on to grudges is like dwelling in darkness. it's harmful to our spiritual well-being. Choosing to forgive, however, is the first step toward enlightenment and inner peace. Constantly dwelling on past hurts and seeking revenge only brings inner turmoil and prevents us from finding true happiness. It's impossible to find joy in a heart filled with bitterness. Just as birds wouldn't build their nests in a burning bush, happiness cannot reside in a mind consumed by thoughts of resentment. And wisdom cannot flourish where there is such folly. Revenge might feel satisfying to someone who hasn't experienced the liberating power of forgiveness. But once you taste the sweetness of forgiveness, you realize how bitter revenge truly is. Revenge may appear to promise happiness to those consumed by anger, but when you let go of that anger and embrace forgiveness, you realize that revenge only leads to more suffering. Revenge, resentment, and holding grudges corrode the soul and poison the mind. They're like viruses infecting our spiritual well-being. Refusing to forgive and holding on to offense are like mental illnesses that drain us of kindness and goodwill. Those who cling to bitterness and resentment subject themselves to immense suffering and miss out on true enlightenment. Surprisingly, the hard-hearted suffer the most. Not only do they attract negativity from others, but their own hardness of heart brings them continual pain. Every time someone refuses to forgive, they inflict upon themselves 5 kinds of suffering: the loss of love, the breakdown of relationships, mental turmoil, wounded pride, and often retribution from others. On the contrary, forgiveness brings 5 kinds of blessings: love, deeper connections with others, peace of mind, mastery over negative emotions, and the kindness and goodwill of others. Many people today suffer from the relentless burden of holding grudges, but they may not realize the heavy price they pay for serving such a cruel master. Only those who have embraced forgiveness understand the stark contrast between the torment of resentment and the sweetness of letting go. Consider the conflicts that plague the world. Individuals, communities, neighbors, and nations locked in cycles of revenge. Think of the heartaches, tears, broken relationships, and even violence that result from this strife. Understanding this, one can't help but reject petty thoughts of resentment, refuse to take offense at others' actions, and strive to live in forgiveness toward all. When a person chooses forgiveness over retaliation, they step out of darkness and into light. Unforgiveness is so ignorant and dark that no wise or enlightened being would willingly engage in it. Its true darkness is only understood once it's left behind in favor of a better, nobler path. Unforgiveness blinds and deludes individuals, fueled by their own sinful tendencies. Letting go of unforgiveness means relinquishing pride and certain passions, as well as shedding the illusion of self-importance and the need to protect oneself. In doing so, one uncovers a higher life, greater wisdom, and pure enlightenment that pride and passion had obscured. Then there are minor offenses, petty grudges, and fleeting slights that diminish character and constrain the soul. These stem from selfishness and vanity. Those blinded by vanity will always find something in others' actions or attitudes to take offense at, and the more vanity there is, the more exaggerated the perceived offense becomes. Indulging in these petty resentments only fosters a spirit of hatred, leading further into darkness, suffering, and self-delusion. Instead, one should avoid taking offense or allowing their feelings to be hurt, which means letting go of pride and vanity. Additionally, they should avoid giving offense or hurting others' feelings, which requires being considerate, forgiving, and charitable towards all. Letting go of vanity and pride is indeed a significant challenge, but it's also a rewarding one. It can be achieved through consistent practice of non-resentment and by reflecting on one's thoughts and actions to understand and purify them. The spirit of forgiveness grows stronger as pride and vanity are overcome and discarded. Choosing not to take offense and refraining from causing offense are interconnected. When a person stops resenting others' actions, they naturally start acting kindly towards them, prioritizing others over themselves or their own defense. Such a person will be gentle in their words and actions, inspiring love and kindness in others rather than stirring up ill will and conflict. They will also be free from fear concerning others' actions towards them, because one who harms no one fears no one. On the other hand, an unforgiving person, eager to retaliate for real or perceived slights or injuries, will not show consideration towards others as they prioritize themselves. They often end up making enemies and live in fear of others, assuming that others are trying to harm them as they themselves do. Hatred fades away through forgiveness, which is incredibly beautiful and more powerful than revenge. It marks the beginning of love, a divine love that isn't self-seeking. Those who practice forgiveness, refining themselves in it, eventually reach a blessed state where the pains of pride, vanity, hatred, and retaliation vanish, replaced by unchanging goodwill and peace. In this state of tranquil bliss, even forgiveness becomes unnecessary. Those who attain it no longer see anything to resent but ignorance and delusion, which they meet with compassion. Forgiveness is only relevant as long as there's a tendency to hold grudges, retaliate, or take offense. Equal love for all beings is the perfect law, the ultimate state where all lesser states find fulfillment. Forgiveness serves as one of the gateways in the flawless temple of divine love. Chapter 7. Rising above the evil. After practicing forgiveness extensively and nurturing a forgiving spirit to a certain degree, one begins to grasp the true nature of good and evil. They start understanding how thoughts and motives originate in the human heart, develop, and manifest as actions. This marks the beginning of a new perspective, a higher and more divine life. The person now realizes that there's no need to resist or resent others' actions toward them, regardless of what those actions entail. They see that their resentment stems from their own ignorance and that harboring bitterness is wrong. At this point, they may start questioning themselves. Why this constant cycle of retaliation and forgiveness? Why do I experience anger toward others and then feel remorse and forgive? Isn't forgiveness about letting go of anger and resentment? If getting rid of bitterness and offering complete forgiveness is so beautiful, peaceful, and sweet, wouldn't it be even more beautiful to never grow bitter at all, to never experience anger, to never see another's action as evil, but always to live in the pure, calm, blissful love felt when forgiveness is extended and all unruly passion toward another is abandoned? If someone wrongs me, isn't my hatred toward them wrong? Can one wrong justify another? Moreover, did their wrongdoing truly harm me, or did it harm them? Am I not harmed more by my own wrongdoing than by theirs? So why do I become angry? Why do I feel resentment, retaliate, and harbor bitter thoughts? Isn't it because my pride is wounded, or my vanity is hurt, or my selfish desires are thwarted? Isn't it because my base animal instincts are aroused and allowed to overpower my better nature? Recognizing that I'm hurt by someone else's behavior toward me because of my own pride, vanity, or uncontrolled passions, wouldn't it be better to focus on correcting the wrong within myself rather than blaming the other person? Wouldn't it be better to eliminate pride, vanity, and passion, thereby avoiding hurt altogether? Through asking oneself such questions and reflecting on them with gentle thoughts and impartial behavior, a person gradually overcomes their passions and rises above the ignorance that fuels them. Eventually, they reach a blessed state where they no longer perceive evil in others. Instead, they dwell in universal goodwill, love, and peace. This doesn't mean they stop recognizing ignorance, foolishness, suffering, or sorrow, nor do they stop distinguishing between right and wrong. However, having set aside passion and prejudice, they see these things clearly exactly as they are. They no longer perceive any evil power in another person that can harm them, against which they must violently oppose or guard themselves. Having gained a correct understanding of evil by purging it from their own heart, they see that it doesn't warrant hatred, fear, or resentment, but rather calls for consideration, compassion, and love. All evil stems from ignorance, a profound darkness of the mind. Removing sin from one's mind is akin to stepping out of darkness and into spiritual light. Evil simply negates good, much like darkness negates light. And what reason is there to be angered or resentful toward a negation? When night falls, who would be foolish enough to blame the darkness? Similarly, an enlightened individual does not accuse or condemn the spiritual darkness in people's hearts that manifests as sin. Instead, they may gently offer guidance to illuminate the path toward light. When I speak of ignorance as the root of evil, I mean it in two ways. First, there's wrongdoing that happens without any awareness of what's right or wrong, where there's no real choice involved. This is unconscious wrongdoing. Then, there's wrongdoing done knowingly, despite understanding that it shouldn't be done. This is conscious wrongdoing. However, both unconscious and conscious wrongdoing stem from ignorance, specifically, ignorance of the true nature and the harmful outcomes of the wrongdoing. Why does a person keep doing things they know they shouldn't? Where does the ignorance lie if they're aware of the wrongdoing? They persist because their understanding is incomplete. They recognize certain actions as wrong based on external rules and inner feelings of guilt, but they don't fully grasp the consequences. Despite the guilty conscience that follows, they're drawn to actions that offer immediate pleasure. They're convinced this pleasure is good and worth pursuing, unaware that pleasure and pain are intertwined. They hope for one without the other. They lack knowledge of the laws governing human behavior and don't connect their suffering to their own actions. Instead, they attribute it to others' wrongdoing or mysterious fate, avoiding inquiry or understanding. They seek happiness and pursue what they believe will bring enjoyment, ignorant of the hidden and inevitable consequences of their actions. Another aspect of evil to consider is individual freedom, the right for each person to choose their own actions. Often, along with recognizing evil in others, comes the desire to convert or force others into adopting one's own beliefs and behaviors. One common delusion is believing that what one believes, thinks, and does is inherently good, and anything different is evil and must be strongly opposed. This misconception fuels persecution. For example, some Christians see all atheists as wholly evil, devoted to a malevolent force, while some atheists believe all Christians harm humanity with their superstitious and false doctrines. In reality, neither Christians nor atheists are inherently evil or serve evil. Each is simply following their own convictions and pursuing what they believe is right. Consider this. Many followers of different religions continue to condemn each other as evil while believing themselves to be good. This ongoing pattern highlights how all evil is essentially rooted in ignorance and spiritual darkness. Reflecting on this reality can greatly aid in cultivating greater kindness, charity, insight, and open-mindedness. Truly wise and good individuals see the goodness in everyone and don't perceive evil in anyone. They've moved beyond the folly of expecting everyone to think and act just like them because they understand that people come from different backgrounds and are on different paths in their spiritual journey. By letting go of hatred, judgment, selfishness, and bias, they've reached a state of enlightenment. They recognize that qualities like purity, love, compassion, gentleness, patience, humility, and selflessness reflect wisdom and positivity, while impurity, hatred, cruelty, and selfishness arise from darkness and ignorance. Whether someone is guided by light or darkness, they're simply acting based on their own understanding and perspective. The wise person grasps this truth and, in their understanding, lets go of bitterness and condemnation. Every individual acts based on their own nature and their own understanding of right and wrong, and they inevitably face the consequences of their actions. Every being has the fundamental right to think and act as they wish. If someone chooses to act selfishly, prioritizing their immediate happiness over others, they will inevitably face consequences dictated by the moral law of cause and effect. These consequences will prompt them to pause, reflect, and hopefully find a better path. Experience is the greatest teacher, and individuals often learn best from the consequences of their own actions. The selfish person is essentially the ignorant person, as they choose a path that leads to suffering. However, through that suffering, they gain knowledge and ultimately find bliss. Conversely, the good person is the wise person. They also choose their own path, but they do so with full knowledge, having passed through stages of ignorance and suffering to arrive at wisdom and happiness. Understanding, seeing no evil, begins when a person sets aside their own desires and biases when judging others. Instead, they strive to understand others from their perspective and evaluate their actions based on their own standards, not someone else's. It's the imposition of arbitrary standards of right and wrong and the desire for everyone to adhere to one's own standard that leads people to see evil in each other. True judgment occurs when someone is assessed not based on another person's standard, but on their own, and treating them this way is an act of love. Enlightenment comes when we view others through the lens of impersonal love, seeing them for who they truly are. A person is moving closer to embodying this love when they can honestly say to themselves, "Who am I to judge another? Am I without fault, so pure that I can pass judgment on others' perceived sins? Instead, let me humble myself, address my own shortcomings, before assuming the role of the ultimate judge over others." A pure heart is so filled with tenderness and love that there's no space for personal judgments or hatred to take root. It's like it's overflowing with kindness, leaving no room to see evil. Only when people start to see no evil in others will they find freedom from sin, sorrow, and suffering. Typically, individuals don't see evil in themselves or their actions, unless they're on the path to enlightenment. As they become more enlightened, they start to recognize the wrong in their actions and abandon them. Everyone tends to justify their actions, no matter how others might perceive them. They believe what they're doing is right and necessary. An angry person sees a reason for their anger. A greedy person justifies their greed, and so on. Even a liar, a slanderer, or a thief thinks their actions are justified somehow. It's a common human tendency to rationalize our behavior, even when it may seem wrong to others. Everyone's actions reflect the level of understanding they have at the moment, whether it's light or darkness within them. No one can act beyond what they know or live higher than their current level of awareness. However, individuals can always work on themselves to improve and gradually increase their understanding. For example, an angry person may resort to insults and verbal attacks because they haven't yet learned the value of patience and forbearance. Without experiencing and practicing gentleness, they simply don't understand it or see its importance. They're essentially living in a state of darkness because they're unaware of the light of gentleness. The same goes for a liar, a slanderer, or a thief. They engage in dishonesty or harmful speech because they're limited by their current understanding and experiences. They haven't lived in conditions where honesty or kindness prevail, so they don't recognize their significance. It's like they're in the dark, unable to comprehend the light that exists beyond their current state of awareness. People tend to view those who share their views as good and those who don't as bad. Someone who's very attached to their own opinions will love those who agree with them and dislike those who don't. But as the saying goes, if you love only those who love you, what reward is there? Loving even those who oppose you is what truly counts. Egotism and vanity can blind people. Those with different religious or political views may hate or persecute each other. Partisans judge others based on their own standards and believe they're right, convincing themselves that cruelty is justified to force others into their way of thinking, even against their will. When someone starts seeing things from the perspective of others, using their standards instead of their own, they stop perceiving evil in others. They understand that everyone has their own ideas about what's good and bad. There's no vice so low that some people don't consider it good, and no virtue so high that some don't see it as evil. What one person sees as good, another might see as bad, and vice versa. A person who has purified their heart and no longer sees evil in others doesn't try to impose their own beliefs on them. Instead, they support others in their own paths, recognizing that broader experiences, not just changes in opinion, lead to greater understanding and happiness. Just as darkness is temporary and light is enduring, sorrow is fleeting while joy lasts forever. Truth never disappears, and falsehood cannot endure. Sorrow is false, so it cannot survive. Joy is true, so it cannot perish. Joy might be obscured for a while, but it can always be rediscovered. Sorrow might linger, but it can be overcome and dispelled. Don't believe that your sorrow will last forever. It will dissipate like a passing cloud. Don't think that the pains of sin are your destiny. They will vanish like a frightening dream. Wake up, rise up, embrace holiness and joy. You are the one who creates your own sorrows. You desire and then you grieve, renounce and then you rejoice. You are not powerless in the face of sorrow. Eternal gladness awaits your return. You are not trapped in the darkness and illusions of sin. Even now, the radiant light of holiness shines upon you, ready to greet your awakening. In the deep, troubled sleep of sin and selfishness, the enduring joy is forgotten. Its everlasting melody fades away, and the aroma of its eternal blossoms no longer soothes the traveler's heart. But when sin and selfishness are abandoned, when attachment to personal pleasures is let go, then the shadows of grief vanish, and the heart returns to its eternal joy. Joy arrives and fills the emptied heart. It stays with the peaceful. Its sovereignty lies with the pure. Joy eludes the selfish. It abandons the quarrelsome. It remains hidden from the impure. Joy is like a beautiful and pure angel who can only reside with holiness. She cannot stay with selfishness. She is united with love. A person finds true happiness in their unselfishness. They experience misery in their selfishness. All genuinely good individuals, those who have successfully battled against their selfishness, are filled with joy. The jubilation of a saint is immense. A true teacher doesn't promise sorrow as life's ultimate outcome. They promise joy. They acknowledge sorrow, but only as a necessary process caused by sin. When selfishness disappears, grief fades away. Joy accompanies righteousness. In the divine existence, tender compassion replaces sorrow. While becoming unselfish, there are moments of profound sorrow. Purification is inevitably rigorous. All transformations involve pain. Lasting joy is only realized in the perfection of being. Think about how a flower grows and matures. It begins as a tiny seed struggling to find its way in the dark soil, reaching towards the sunlight. Then it sprouts, adding leaf upon leaf, and eventually, it blossoms into a fully formed flower, emitting a sweet fragrance and displaying exquisite beauty, all without any effort. Similarly, human life follows a similar progression. It starts with a blind search for light amidst the darkness of selfishness and ignorance. Then comes the emergence into the light, accompanied by the gradual overcoming of selfish tendencies, often accompanied by pain and sorrow. And finally, there's the full bloom of a pure, unselfish life, naturally emanating the fragrance of holiness and the beauty of joy effortlessly. As you pursue the highest good and put it into practice, you'll discover the deepest, most fulfilling joy. When you set aside your own desires to care for and serve others, you'll begin to taste the enduring joy of life. Beyond the gates of unselfishness lies a realm of lasting joy, inviting all who are willing to enter. And for those who doubt, let them come and see for themselves. Understanding that selfishness leads to misery, while unselfishness leads to joy, not just for oneself but for the entire world. Let us sow seeds of kindness and compassion wherever we go. Even in the presence of our adversaries, let us shower them with the blossoms of unselfish love. In doing so, the very footsteps of our enemies will release the fragrance of holiness, filling the world with the sweet aroma of joy. Chapter 8. Why silence is essential for a period of time for chosen ones. The words of a wise person hold great power, but their silence is even more potent. The greatest individuals often teach us most profoundly when they choose to remain silent. While the verbose ramblings of clever talkers may captivate thousands momentarily, it is the silent demeanor of the truly wise that resonates through the ages. Think of Jesus' profound silence in response to Pilate's question, "What is truth?" It spoke volumes, brimming with humility and gentle rebuke for those who would oversimplify the mysteries of existence with mere words or platitudes. Similarly, When Buddha faced probing questions about God from argumentative scholars, his silence conveyed a deeper wisdom than any words could express. His quietude may have puzzled the foolish, but it profoundly enlightened the discerning. Why engage in endless debates about God when simple acts of kindness and goodwill can lead us to true wisdom? Before delving into speculative arguments about the nature of the divine, let us first strive to understand ourselves. There are few traits more indicative of folly and moral immaturity than irreverence and presumption, and conversely, few that signify wisdom and maturity more than reverence and humility. Lao Tzu, embodying his teaching that the wise person teaches without words, lived a life of quiet dignity. Though he sought neither fame nor attention, disciples flocked to him, drawn by the silent power of his presence. In his humility and reserve, he demonstrated the essence of true wisdom. The silent actions of the wise serve as guiding lights for those seeking virtue and wisdom, offering clear direction along their journey. To attain true wisdom, one must learn not only when to speak and what to say, but also when to remain silent and what not to say. The ability to control one's tongue marks the beginning of wisdom, while mastery over the mind represents its culmination. When a person restrains their speech, they gain mastery over their thoughts. This complete control over one's mind is the essence of being a master of silence. The fool, on the other hand, indulges in idle chatter, gossip, pointless arguments, and defensive retorts. They take pride in having the last word, even if it means wasting energy on fruitless endeavors. It's as if they're a gardener tilling soil that yields no harvest. In contrast, the wise person avoids frivolous talk, gossip, futile debates, and the need to defend themselves. They're content to let others have the final say and even welcome defeat, knowing that each setback offers an opportunity for growth and self-improvement. Truly blessed is the one who doesn't feel the need to win every argument. Remaining silent in the face of provocation is a hallmark of true chosen ones. Those who are thoughtless and unkind are easily rattled by even the smallest offense, risking their emotional balance at the slightest hint of personal intrusion. Jesus' composure wasn't miraculous. It was the result of refinement and wisdom. When we read about Jesus not responding or Buddha maintaining silence, we catch a glimpse of the immense power of silence, the dignified presence of true greatness. The quiet person holds great strength. In contrast, those who talk excessively lack influence. Their spiritual vitality is scattered. Just as a mechanic understands that energy must be conserved and stored before it can be effectively harnessed and directed, so too does the wise individual conserve the energies of their mind. They keep these energies under masterful control, ready to be directed purposefully whenever the need arises. True strength lies in silence. As the saying goes, the dog that barks doesn't bite. Take the bulldog, for example, known for its quiet and focused demeanor before striking. This silent intensity is what makes its actions so potent and feared. While this example may be on a simpler level, the principle remains the same. Consider the boaster who fails because his focus is divided. His mind becomes distracted by self-glorification, diverting energy away from the main task. It's akin to an unskilled general dispersing troops instead of concentrating them strategically, or an engineer who neglects to close a waste valve, allowing steam to escape. In contrast, the modest, silent, and earnest individual succeeds. Free from vanity and the distraction of self-praise, they concentrate all their energy on the task at hand. While the boaster talks about their abilities, the silent worker is already making progress, moving closer to completing the task. This principle holds true universally. Energy dispersed is energy lost, but energy conserved leads to success. It's a universally applicable principle that silence equates to strength. Successful business people don't discuss their plans or methods openly, and if they start to, their success may falter. Similarly, those with great moral influence don't boast about their victories, as doing so would diminish their power and influence. Like Samson losing his strength when his hair was cut, their moral authority would dissipate. Success, whether worldly or spiritual, serves those with strong, silent, and unwavering determination. The most potent forces often operate quietly. A mind that overcomes obstacles does so without fanfare. If you want to be strong, capable, and independent, understand the power of silence. Avoid talking excessively about yourself. People perceive constant self-promotion as a sign of weakness and emptiness. Instead of boasting about your plans, focus on executing them. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Don't waste energy criticizing others. Concentrate on doing your own work diligently and effectively. Even imperfect work done with sincerity and kindness is preferable to simply finding fault with others. While you're busy criticizing others, you're neglecting your own responsibilities. If you see someone struggling, lead by example rather than berating them. Don't get caught up in responding to others' negativity. Stay silent in the face of criticism. Through your actions, you'll conquer yourself and silently teach others by example. True silence isn't just about holding your tongue. It's about calming the mind. Merely restraining speech while harboring inner turmoil isn't a remedy for weakness or a source of strength. To be truly powerful, silence must pervade the entire mind, filling every corner of the heart with peace. This profound silence is achieved as one conquers oneself. When passions, temptations, and sorrows stir within, the deeper silence remains unexplored. Feeling wounded by the words and actions of others reveals inner weakness, lack of self-control, and impurity. Therefore, free your heart from the disturbances of vanity, pride, and selfishness, so that no petty insult can touch you, and no slander or abuse can disrupt your inner peace. Like a well-built house that stands firm against a raging storm while its inhabitant remains composed and content within, the wise individual fortified with self-control and inner peace remains undisturbed by external evils. This profound silence is attained by those who have conquered themselves. One of the most common mistakes people make is believing that nothing can be achieved without a lot of talking and noise. The busy chatterer often sees the quiet thinker or silent doer as unproductive, mistaking silence for inactivity, and assuming that constant chatter signifies productivity. They also tend to equate popularity with power. However, it's the thinker and doer who is the true worker, making a real and lasting impact. Their work goes to the essence, the heart of things, much like how nature quietly but profoundly transforms earth and air into beautiful flowers and delicious fruits. Instead of wasting time on the surface, the silent worker focuses on the core, channeling their energy there. Their efforts may go unnoticed at first, but in due time, the fruits of their labor emerge to enrich the world. Meanwhile, the words of the incessant talker fade away, leaving no lasting impact. The person who preserves their mental energy also tends to preserve their physical energy. A calm and composed individual often lives longer and enjoys better health compared to someone who is always in a rush and loud. Mental tranquility and harmony contribute to physical well-being and overall health. Silence holds power because it reflects inner mastery. The more a person controls themselves, the quieter they tend to be. By living with a clear purpose rather than indulging in self-gratification, they distance themselves from the external chaos and find inner peace. When they speak, their words carry weight and purpose, and when they choose silence, it holds equal or even greater power. They refrain from speaking or acting in ways that cause pain or regret, opting instead for thoughtful words and actions that bring peace to their conscience and blessings to their life. Chapter 9. Why solitude is the key for chosen ones. At the core, man's existence is inward, unseen, and spiritual. Its vitality and strength come from within rather than from external sources. While external experiences may consume its energies, true renewal comes from tapping into the inner silence. When man tries to escape this silence by immersing himself in the noisy distractions of the senses and engaging in external conflicts, he inevitably faces pain and sorrow. Eventually, these hardships become unbearable, leading him back to the comforting presence within, to the tranquil sanctuary of inner solitude. The spiritual essence of life isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you lose when you get caught up in worldly pleasures. The constant demands of our lower desires leave us restless, offering no real peace. The hustle and bustle of everyday life, with its focus on pleasure-seeking and noisy distractions, wears us down. Just like our bodies need rest to recharge, our spirits need solitude to rejuvenate. Solitude is essential for our spiritual well-being, just as sleep is for our physical health. Pure thoughts and meditation, which come to us in moments of solitude, are vital for our inner selves, just as physical activity is for our bodies. Just as our bodies suffer when deprived of rest, our spirits suffer when deprived of silence and solitude. We, as spiritual beings, can't stay strong, upright, and peaceful unless we take time to retreat from the external world and connect with the eternal truths within ourselves. The comfort found in religious practices often comes from the enforced solitude they provide. The rituals and ceremonies of formal religion, with their moments of concentrated silence and freedom from worldly distractions, lead us to focus inwardly and briefly contemplate higher ideals. For those who haven't yet mastered self-control and inner peace, formal religious practices can be a helpful aid. But for those actively seeking self-improvement and spiritual growth, who regularly withdraw into solitude to wrestle with their inner demons and steer their thoughts toward nobler pursuits, external religious structures become less necessary. Ultimately, the purpose of religious institutions isn't to cater to the needs of the spiritually advanced, but to uplift and guide those who are still struggling with their inner conflicts. In moments of solitude, a person finds the strength to face life's challenges, the knowledge to understand and overcome them, and the wisdom to rise above them. Just like a building relies on its hidden foundation for stability, a person's inner strength and peace are sustained by moments of deep reflection that no one else sees. It's only in solitude that a person truly gets to know themselves, understanding their true nature, strengths, and potentials. In the noisy chaos of the world, drowned out by conflicting desires, the voice of the spirit remains unheard. Without solitude, there can be no spiritual growth. Some people fear self-reflection and avoid solitude because they're afraid of confronting their innermost thoughts and desires. They prefer the distractions of a bustling environment where they can escape from uncomfortable truths. But those who seek truth and wisdom embrace solitude. They willingly spend time alone to gain a clear understanding of themselves, avoiding noisy places and seeking inner peace where they can listen to the gentle voice of truth within them. People often chase after company and new experiences, hoping to find happiness and excitement. But amidst all the noise and distractions, they fail to find true peace. They search for joy in laughter and excitement, but their happiness is short-lived, and they still face sorrow and suffering. Lost in the chaos of life's storms, driven by selfish desires, people endure hardships until they finally seek solace in the silence within themselves, like finding refuge in a sturdy rock amidst turbulent waters. When a person is constantly engaged in external activities, they drain their inner strength and become spiritually weaker. To maintain moral strength, they must turn to solitary reflection. This practice is so essential that those who neglect it miss out on true understanding of life. They also struggle to recognize and overcome deeply ingrained sins that often masquerade as virtues, deceiving even the most discerning individuals. Living in constant pursuit of external thrills often leads to disappointment and sorrow. Where there is the most noise and excitement, there can also be the greatest sense of emptiness. Similarly, those whose lives revolve solely around outward activities, who never take time for quiet reflection or delve into deeper truths, miss out on true knowledge and wisdom. They remain spiritually empty, unable to offer anything substantial to the world. On the other hand, those who embrace solitude to seek truth, who tame their desires and focus on inner growth, are continually gaining wisdom. They are filled with a deep understanding of life's mysteries, and their spiritual richness allows them to uplift and support others. Their inner store of wisdom is always full and ready to be shared with the world. When a person focuses on exploring their inner world, they gain profound insights and strength. Like a flower turning towards the sun, they open themselves to the universal truths and absorb their life-giving essence. In this state, they tap into the eternal wellspring of wisdom, gaining more in 1 hour of deep reflection than they could from a year of reading alone. Knowledge is vast and endless, but those who delve into the depths of their own being connect with a well of divine wisdom that never runs dry, drinking from the waters of immortality. Genius springs from a deep connection with the profound truths of existence and a constant drawing from the wellspring of life itself. This ongoing communion with the essence of life forms the essence of genius. Genius is not about being born with extraordinary abilities, but about tapping into the universal source of wisdom and creativity. A genius doesn't rely solely on external sources like books, but draws inspiration from within. While books provide information, true wisdom comes from life experience and personal reflection. A genius understands this and doesn't just accumulate facts, but seeks to understand the deeper meanings behind them. Unlike an ordinary person who may chase after fleeting pleasures, a genius pursues wisdom and insight. They understand that true fulfillment comes from exploring the depths of their own being rather than chasing external validation. The difference between a genius and an average person lies in their approach to life. While an average person may rely on external sources for knowledge and inspiration, a genius looks inward and draws from their own inner well of creativity and wisdom. This inner connection allows them to create works that are not only innovative but also timeless, as they are rooted in universal truths rather than passing trends. Genius and greatness find their roots and flourish in moments of solitude. Even the most ordinary person, when they deeply contemplate a noble purpose in quiet reflection, can achieve extraordinary things. Similarly, those who choose to step away from the distractions of the world, seeking obscurity instead of fame, and devote themselves to noble ideals, can become visionaries and prophets. By nurturing a pure and beautiful heart, by immersing oneself in contemplation, one can tap into the profound harmonies of existence. In the quiet depths of solitude, the cosmic symphony becomes audible, and ordinary individuals are transformed into poets and prophets. Genius, in essence, is born from solitude. It is like a child, innocent and curious, yet mysterious to those who are captivated by the noise of the world. Only those who dare to venture into the realm of silence can catch glimpses of its wonders. Even the most accomplished individuals who have reached great heights of knowledge and wisdom still valued moments of solitude. They understood that solitude was essential for renewing their inner strength and maintaining their moral integrity. By withdrawing from the world for brief periods, they tapped into the creative energies within themselves. These masters didn't achieve their power through miracles. It was a result of aligning their thoughts and actions with universal principles. By transcending their own desires and merging with the greater good, they became conduits for creative expression and stood as examples of cosmic evolution in action. This process isn't mysterious. It's governed by natural laws. Every person has the potential to become a master of creativity by aligning themselves with truth and goodness. However, this requires selflessness, the willingness to put aside personal desires for the greater good. True genius is achieved when selflessness becomes the driving force behind one's actions. But achieving this level of selflessness isn't easy. It requires solitude, a time to gather and concentrate one's spiritual energies away from the distractions of the world. While it's possible to maintain this balance even in the midst of daily life, it's a skill that's honed over many years of regular solitude. Man's true essence finds its roots in the profound stillness of the great silence. This is where everything real and enduring within him originates. Yet, in our current state, we live in a world of duality, where both outer actions and inner contemplation are necessary. Neither complete isolation nor constant activity defines the ideal life. Instead, true living lies in the balance between solitude and action. Just as a weary worker seeks solace and rest at home after a day's labor, so too must one retreat from the clamor of the world to find rejuvenation in the comforting embrace of silence. By regularly withdrawing into purposeful solitude, even for brief intervals each day, individuals can find strength, wisdom, and blessings. Solitude isn't for the faint-hearted. It's for those willing to grow strong. As one progresses towards greatness, they naturally gravitate towards solitude. It's in these quiet moments of reflection that seekers find what they're looking for. There exists a pathway to all knowledge, wisdom, truth, and power, but it's not found amidst noise and chaos. Instead, it winds its way through the tranquil depths of solitude and the uncharted territories of one's inner being. Chapter 10: Importance of the Self-Reliance for Chosen Ones. In a life of happiness, being self-reliant is crucial. Without inner peace, we need strength. Without stability, there's no security. And without relying on things that can vanish at any moment, lasting joy is elusive. True living begins when we find an unshakable core within ourselves to stand on, a place to guide our lives and find peace. Trusting in things that change leads to instability. Leaning on what can be taken away causes us to stumble. And seeking happiness in temporary possessions leaves us empty even when surrounded by plenty. Let a person learn to stand alone, not relying on others for support or seeking personal gain. Instead of begging or complaining, find strength in the truth within yourself, drawing satisfaction and comfort from your own integrity. If someone can't find peace within themselves, where else will they find it? If they fear being alone with their thoughts, how can they find stability in company? Without finding solace in their own thoughts, they'll struggle to find happiness in their interactions with others. Those who haven't found inner strength will struggle to find lasting peace anywhere. People often believe that their happiness depends on others or external things, leading to constant disappointments and regrets. However, those who find happiness within themselves are self-contained and calm in any situation, never falling victim to misery and grief. On the other hand, relying on others for support and measuring happiness by their actions leaves one spiritually unstable, constantly tossed by the changing tides of life. Such individuals are like spiritual cripples, yet to learn how to stand firm without relying on external support. Just as a child learns to walk independently to move around freely, so should a person learn to stand alone, to think, judge, and act for themselves, and to choose their own path with confidence. The world outside is full of change, decay, and uncertainty, but within yourself lies stability and happiness. Your soul is self-sufficient, providing all you need. Your true home is within you. Claim it as your own kingdom. Be content to let others manage their own lives while you focus on ruling over your own. Your well-being, and indeed the well-being of the world, depends on this inner mastery. Listen to your conscience, sharpen your mind, use your judgment wisely, strengthen your will, and expand your knowledge. Nurture the inner light of your soul, protecting it from the storms of passion, and let it shine brighter with each passing day. Turn away from the distractions of the world and reconnect with yourself. Think, act, and live as your true self. Find completeness within yourself and trust in your inner guidance. Just as the earth follows its orbit around the sun, obey the inner light within you, even if others see it differently. Ultimately, you are responsible for yourself, accountable only to yourself. Trust in yourself, for if you doubt yourself, how can others trust you? Stay true to yourself, and you will find the deep satisfaction of living in alignment with truth. The truly great person stands confidently on their own, without relying on others for validation or direction. They follow their own path without apology or seeking permission. Their actions are not swayed by others' opinions. They are guided by their inner wisdom. Until you can stand alone, seeking guidance from neither spirits nor people, gods nor mortals, but relying on the truth within yourself, you are not truly free or blessed. But be careful not to confuse self-reliance with pride. Relying on pride is like standing on shaky ground. It's a recipe for disaster. Prideful people actually depend heavily on others' approval and are easily hurt or pleased by their opinions. Their happiness is entirely at the mercy of others. In contrast, the self-reliant person stands firm not on pride but on inner principles and truths. They are grounded in themselves, refusing to be swayed by inner emotions or external opinions. Even if they stumble, they quickly regain their balance and find their happiness within themselves. Discover your inner balance and you'll find success in standing alone. Whatever your life's work may be, you'll achieve your goals because the truly self-reliant person is unbeatable. But even though you don't depend on others, keep learning from them. Never stop gaining knowledge and always be open to what is good and helpful. You can never have too much humility. The most self-reliant people are also the most humble. Learn from everyone, especially from those who understand the truth, but never forget that the ultimate guidance comes from within yourself. A master can show you the path, but they can't force you to walk it or walk it for you. You must make your own efforts, achieve through your own strength, and make their truth your truth through your own efforts. Trust yourself completely. You're meant to be the master of your own destiny, not imitating others but doing your work as an integral part of the universe. Give love without expecting it in return, offer sympathy without seeking it for yourself, and provide aid without relying on it. If others criticize your work, pay no attention to them. As long as your work is true, that's all that matters. Don't worry about whether it will please others. Just focus on whether it's authentic. True work is immune to criticism, and false work will fade away on its own. Criticism and resentment are unnecessary. Free yourself from the chains of dependence and stand alone, not as a disconnected individual, but as a connected part of the whole. Discover the joy of true freedom, the peace that comes from inner strength, and the happiness that arises from self-reliance. Chapter 11. Conclusion. Human life, when lived correctly, is marked by a beautiful simplicity. However, it strays from this path when it becomes entangled in a web of lusts, desires, and wants. These are not the essence of real life. Rather, they represent a feverish and painful state originating from an unenlightened mind. The beginning of wisdom lies in restraining one's desires, and true wisdom is achieved when one gains complete mastery over them. This is because life operates within the bounds of natural law, and since it is inseparable from this law, life lacks nothing that isn't already provided for. Desire or lust is not a necessity but a rebellious excess. It leads to deprivation and misery. Consider the parable of the prodigal son, who, while in his father's house, had everything he needed and more. But when desire entered his heart, he left for a distant land, where he began to experience want. Only when he reached the brink of starvation did he long for his father's home. This story symbolizes the journey of individuals and humanity as a whole. Man's myriad cravings lead to perpetual discontent, dissatisfaction, want, and pain. The only remedy is a return to the Father's home, to actual living or being, as opposed to mere desiring. However, a person seldom embarks on this journey until they've reached the depths of spiritual starvation. After experiencing pain and sorrow as a result of desire, they yearn for the true life of peace and abundance. This yearning should not be mistaken for desire. It is aspiration. While desire craves possessions, aspiration longs for peace. The pursuit of things only leads further away from peace, resulting in perpetual want. Rest and satisfaction remain elusive until desire is abandoned. The hunger for peace, unlike the hunger for possessions, can be satisfied. When selfish desires are relinquished, one experiences fullness of joy, abundant blessings, and complete fulfillment. In this state, life achieves perfect symmetry and simplicity, and one attains the pinnacle of power and usefulness. Peace becomes the norm, constantly and unwaveringly present. Those immersed in desire mistakenly believe that overcoming desire leads to inactivity and loss of power. On the contrary, It leads to highly concentrated activity, the full utilization of one's power, and a life of unimaginable richness and glory, far beyond the reach of those who crave only pleasure and possessions. When a person frees themselves from selfish desires, their mind becomes unburdened, allowing them to work for the betterment of humanity. No longer chasing after fleeting pleasures that leave them unsatisfied, they can harness all their abilities to fulfill their duties flawlessly, without seeking any personal rewards. The fully enlightened and blessed individual is driven by knowledge, not desire. Unlike those driven by desire, who require the promise of rewards to motivate them, the enlightened person can readily channel their energies towards necessary tasks at any moment. They have outgrown the need for rewards. Every experience, whether perceived as good or bad, is embraced with complete satisfaction. Such a person has truly embraced life, finding perpetual delight in obeying the simple yet unfailing laws of existence. However, attaining this state of supreme blessedness is not the end of the journey. It is the goal towards which pilgrims strive, akin to the prodigal son returning home. To reach this state, one must navigate through the realm of animal desires, gradually disentangling oneself from their complexities, simplifying them, and ultimately overcoming them. Initially, this path may seem arduous, as desires can cloud one's understanding of life's simple structure and hide its laws. Yet, as one's mind becomes more clear and simplified, the direct laws of life become evident, making the journey straightforward and illuminated by the clear light of knowledge. To expedite the progress of those seeking true and blessed life, let's now explore some of these simple laws, which operate with mathematical precision. All life is interconnected, despite its many different forms of expression. Similarly, all laws are unified, even though they manifest in diverse ways. There isn't one set of rules for the physical realm and another for the mental or spiritual realm. The same principles apply universally. Just as there is a consistent logic governing worldly matters, the same logic applies to spiritual matters as well. In the material world, it's a well-understood principle that one must work to support oneself. Society recognizes the fairness of this law, ensuring that those who don't work don't eat. People abide by this law to secure their material needs. However, when it comes to spiritual matters, many fail to acknowledge or obey this same principle. They believe that while it's just for individuals to earn their material sustenance, they should receive spiritual blessings without effort or merit. Consequently, many find themselves spiritually impoverished, lacking in joy, knowledge, and peace, akin to beggars wandering in spiritual destitution and suffering. Just as you wouldn't expect a storekeeper to give you something for free, but rather you'd pay for it with your money, the same principle applies to spiritual matters. If you desire spiritual qualities like joy, peace, or assurance, you must be willing to give something in return. Just as you exchange a portion of your material wealth for worldly goods, you must be prepared to surrender some of your inner qualities like passion, vanity, or indulgence in exchange for spiritual fulfillment. Consider the miser who hoards his money, unwilling to spend any of it despite his wealth. He may possess riches, but he lives in perpetual want and discomfort. Similarly, the person who refuses to let go of negative qualities like anger, pride, or selfishness in exchange for temporary pleasure is like a spiritual miser. Despite indulging in worldly pleasures, they experience continual spiritual dissatisfaction and unease. A wise person in the material world doesn't resort to begging or stealing. Instead, they work diligently and earn what they need. Society respects them for their honesty and integrity. Similarly, a wise individual in spiritual matters doesn't beg for spiritual blessings or try to take shortcuts. Instead, they work within themselves, cultivating their inner world. The entire universe acknowledges and honors them for their righteousness and inner strength. In the world, it's a common rule that when someone agrees to work for a certain wage, they must be content with what they've agreed upon. Asking for more money at the end of the week, even if one feels they deserve it, usually results in dismissal. Similarly, in spiritual matters, People often ask for blessings or spiritual rewards without deserving them or without having worked for them. However, the universe operates on the principle of giving what is earned. Every action and thought corresponds to an outcome, and each individual enters into agreements with the universal laws. The enlightened person understands this and remains content and at peace, knowing that they receive what they've earned, whether it's perceived as misfortune or good fortune by others. The universal law ensures that everyone receives what they agreed upon through their actions and intentions. Just as a person needs to manage their finances wisely to grow wealthy in material goods, saving, investing, and spending wisely, a person seeking spiritual wealth must also manage their mental resources carefully. This means controlling impulses, avoiding wasteful activities like idle gossip and pointless arguments, and managing emotions. By doing so, they accumulate wisdom, their spiritual capital, which they can then share with others. The more they share and use this wisdom, the richer they become spiritually. Conversely, someone who acts impulsively and fails to control their mind is like a spendthrift with their spiritual resources. They cannot become rich in divine wisdom. Just as it is a physical law that climbing a mountain requires effort and perseverance, so too is there a spiritual law at play. To reach the heights of moral or intellectual excellence, one must exert themselves. They must seek out the path and diligently follow it, overcoming all obstacles along the way. This journey may involve trials, temptations, and heartaches, but by enduring these challenges, one can eventually stand atop the summit of moral perfection. From this vantage point, the struggles of the world seem small, and the vast expanse of dignity and wisdom stretches out before them. These are just a few examples of the many laws, all stemming from the one great law that must be comprehended, applied, and adhered to for the attainment of full spiritual maturity and blessedness. Every physical law finds its equal counterpart in the spiritual realm, the inner, unseen aspect of human existence. Just as physical phenomena reflect spiritual realities, worldly wisdom mirrors divine wisdom. The same principles governing everyday life are equally applicable in spiritual matters, with the same precise accuracy. Once this is realized, and these laws are followed as faithfully in spiritual affairs as they are in worldly affairs, a person achieves a solid foundation of precise knowledge. Their sorrows dissipate, and doubt ceases to trouble them. Life embodies uncompromising justice and operates with invincible logic. Law governs eternally, and at its core lies love. There is no room for favoritism or whimsy in the universe. It is inherently fair, granting each individual their just rewards. Because everything operates according to law, everything is ultimately good. Understanding this, one can navigate life with confidence, finding joy and contentment along the way. Jesus exemplified this understanding, seeing the good even in his own fate and forgiving those who wronged him. He recognized that no one could take his life from him. Rather, he willingly laid it down himself. Similarly, when one simplifies their life and purifies their mind, they come to grasp the beautiful simplicity of existence. They see the consistent operation of law in all things and understand the consequences of their thoughts and actions. With this knowledge, they strive to think and act in ways that are beneficial from beginning to end. They accept the lawful results of past actions without complaint or fear, resting in obedience and finding perfect peace in their understanding of the law. Life offers many happy endings because it is rich with nobility, purity, and beauty. Despite the presence of sin, ignorance, tears, pain, and sorrow, there is also purity, knowledge, smiles, healing, and joy. Every pure thought and selfless deed leads to a happy outcome, and each of these outcomes is a joyful culmination. A harmonious home, a successful life, a task done well, and the company of kind friends are all happy endings. Resolving conflicts, letting go of grudges, confessing and forgiving unkind words, and reuniting with friends are also happy endings. Discovering something long sought after, moving from tears to joy, finding the right path in life after much searching, these are all blessed conclusions. Those who follow the paths I have indicated will find themselves experiencing happy endings without actively seeking them, as their lives will be filled with such outcomes. Those who start and continue on the right path need not strive for happy results. They are already present as natural consequences, the realities of life. There are happy endings that belong to the material world, but these are temporary and fleeting. There are also happy endings that belong to the spiritual world, which are eternal and enduring. While worldly possessions can be taken anywhere, they are eventually left behind. Relying solely on them for happiness leads to a spiritual emptiness. However, those who possess spiritual virtues will never lose their source of happiness. They will always carry it with them, experiencing the fullness of joy wherever they go. Truly happy is the one who has transcended the thought of self and entered a life of boundless compassion and love for all living beings. This person has reached a state of eternal happiness, experiencing the ultimate unity of life and the great reality that transcends all earthly names. Such a person rests in the infinite, experiencing profound bliss and peace, embodying the perfection of life. This is the true meaning of being a chosen one.